Alright everyone, now it's time to talk about Dissenter, which is Gab's service, the Washington Post. First, a quick update. They got tens of thousands of users already. It sort of blows out of the water the claim of Gab's supposedly tiny user base that was being pushed by the SPLC and Holt and all these others. And they got into it because they're like, we're not a Soros asset, and yeah, People for the American Way is a Soros asset in part. So it was and then they, I think it was Right Wing Watch had to delete a tweet because they got owned on that one, courtesy of yours truly. But we got to talk about Dissenter and the Washington Post specifically. The Washington Post attempted to prevent Dissenter from operating by putting a random string after the URL, by having basically a unique sort of per-user URL generated for people who go to their pages to try to prevent Dissenter from working. The idea was that you'd only be commenting to yourself. That was quickly fixed. Within less than 24 hours, Gab had patched their extension, and now you can do. By the way, I don't think they're still not on Pale Moon. They still don't have Pale Moon availability. Please do change that, Gab, because I use Opera, but I don't use it like as often. I prefer Pale Moon because it's more familiar. I've made it more secure the way I tinker with it. I like it. Sometimes it hangs or has a problem, but for the most part, it's very stable. Basically like a faster, more secure, non-Mozilla run version of Firefox, because fucking Mozilla cucked out a long time ago. But they bypassed it. They just changed their code a little bit, and now they've defeated the problem. Here's the thing. It was funny because literally the other day I was thinking about that, because I was thinking about, alt tech in general. I'm like, oh, what would happen if they started doing exactly this? How would Dissenter get around it? And at the time I was like mildly worried because I'm like, well, this could become the new norm, and then Dissenter will have to do a bunch of shit. It'll take them months to bypass. No, it only took them like 24 hours. Not even, actually, so it was really great. Dissenter is definitely formidable. There's a reason why the Washington Post would do this. There's a reason why you've got a half a dozen hit pieces within the first 72 hours of its existence. Some from considerable, legacy media outlets, places like BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, all attacking it at once. There's a reason the SPLC would be, worried about it. There's a reason why a bunch of liberals, craptivists or slacktivists, you could call them, would be worried about it. It's because it gives free speech. It injects it back into the internet. For a long time, for years, comment sections have been disappearing, and sometimes it's like a defensive mechanism, and I can understand this. You're running like a legacy media group. You have comments open. You're constantly spewing propaganda. You're lying to people, or you're lying by omission or by structure, or just a clear bald-faced lie, or you're telling half-truths or something like that. Most of what you post there is basically no different than a tabloid, but you pretend that it's real. And you make a lot of money doing this. Some of these people make 6-7 figures. Then all of a sudden, because you have comments open, people start pouring on, correcting the article, and debating with one another in the comment section. It was during elections. Like, I can remember the 2012 election, CNN's comment area, ironically, was the place to be. It was hilarious because it was non-stop debate, and it was often very, very, very edgy debate through Discuss or Facebook accounts, and I think even Google Plus accounts at the time. I think. Or did they come along later? I almost want to say they didn't exist in that era. Whatever the case may be. And, you'd get banned once in a while. You'd just make a new Discuss account. It was easy with a temporary email service or something. You just sign up and you fucking use it for 6 months. It kicks you off. You'd get another one. It doesn't really matter. And I remember I could recognize shills on there. I was using it enough so that I actually picked up on the linguistic patterns of certain other users. Like, there was a Stu Weinstein, who was definitely a cross-ship poster on 4chan, using the term moon unit at the time, which was common there. He had exported that to his CNN comments. Dedicated leftist, extreme Obama-maniac, although he was even further left, arguably, than Obama. He was a paid shill. Definitely, like, I can corroborate he was a paid shill. And so he would do this all day, and based on that interaction, he's getting a paycheck. He's there to sow discord. I wouldn't be. I almost think the Krasensteins have like a bot that posts for them at this point, because maybe they've got a similar thing going. I think they got sued for millions of dollars, didn't they, years ago? I think. Well, they're still obviously pretty well off. They got all day to be on Twitter and do literally nothing else. It must be pretty good for them. But Gab is surprisingly resilient, considering the amount of times it's been attacked. Here's the funny thing. It's really funny to see, like, when the legacy media will attack an alt-tech firm. Oh, they've only got X number of users after so many years. Haha. Oh, they're not quite solvent or something. It's like, yes, because you have repeatedly attempted. You've gotten them, in Gab's case, for example. You've run dozens of hit pieces about Gab and now dozens about Dissenter. You have repeatedly gotten them fiscally deplatformed. You got them kicked off their registrar. You've gotten their site attacked with DDoS and everything else for years. The fact that they're still there at all is a surprising statement of their stability long-term as a platform. They've been there, they're going to keep being there. All of the ideological and physical attacks on them haven't done anything. They tried to do this with BitChute. It didn't work. And there's big news. I've been tipped off that there'll be big news fairly soon on that end as well. Minds.com. Same fucking thing. It's the same thing over, or you'd think of Subscribestar. They tried to deplatform that, and it looked like it might go the way of Patreon. Nope, they managed to get new processors. It's still working. I'm there. I've got hundreds of people donating every month. It's basically all of the income I lost on Patreon because people wanted to stop using that is now made up for on Subscribestar. I love it. Yeah, I got my payout. It works for me. It's obviously not a scam at this point. It's working and functioning and everything. It's not like Maker Support, which was an unfortunate event. I think their site is gone completely now. Fuentes got fucked by them. I got fucked by them to the tune of like, what, $500 or $600. At this point, it's like, though, unless you're gonna have like a class action sort of thing going, it's like, fucking who gives a shit? You know, sorry about the fact that there are shysters out there that'll bilk you using creators that were under stress at the time. Wonderful. By the way, the Maker Support still communicative for a while there. It's like, why even bother if you're gonna scam everyone? Why do you even bother communicating with people that put trust in your fucking service? By the way, I think Gab gave me Pro for no reason. Maybe it's because I'm talking about it. Maybe it's the audience size. I don't know. Maybe you get over a certain number of followers, it's automatic. I don't even know how that works. But here's the thing. They're still there. They're still growing. And now Dissenter is growing at such a rapid pace. What's going to end up happening, and this is where I agree with Gab, is that by having the two services conjoined, it makes Gab larger as well. It grows Gab. What I said is that there should be at least offering of partial functionality for people without Gab accounts, because Dissenter has the ability to grow much larger. Like if you look at Twitter, even Twitter being dominant within the field of that kind of tech, Twitter itself ultimately is handicapped in size. Like, there are only a certain number, a certain proportion of people that are interested in that kind of service. I think a service like Dissenter, many more people would be interested in, because, again, people like to communicate with one another and interact with content. If you can't do that on the page itself, the next best thing is to use something like Dissenter. And you can, and by the way, if it grows large enough, becomes prevalent enough, what you will see as a reaction mechanism, I guarantee this, is that some of those sites and groups and pages that have comments off will begin restoring them. They'll say, look, people are going to be commenting, fomenting ideas, organizing potentially raids and stuff anyway. We might as well have that on our site so we have at least marginal control. Dissenter could assume the secondary role of pressuring these groups into trying to create their own commenting areas once more, re-enabling them. Like CNN, half the articles you can't comment on. Not that I go to CNN much anymore specifically for that reason. Fox has turned a lot of its comments off. YouTube is now turning off comments on entire channels, millions of them automatically. It's like it's not even per video, it appears to be the entire channel. And they're saying it's temporary. What does that mean? A month? A year? If I'm some content creator and I want to interact with my audience and I'm making literally G-rated, family-friendly in the most literal sense content, and you shut all my comments off so I can't even coordinate with anyone, I'm going to be looking for other services. Gabs Dissenter, #1 on that list. Why the hell wouldn't you want to use it? That and having a Twitter account to talk to people. YouTube making mistakes. By the way, my BitChute totals started skyrocketing right after that began to happen because people, I think, are worried about the stability of the platform. And these groups, no matter how large they are, with the exception of Google that's so heavily diversified that maybe it doesn't matter if any of their subservices suffer because the rest can drag it back up, with that one possible exception, all of these other sites are basically just MySpace 2.0 if they make one big mistake that's too much for people. It's possible. Twitter is already faltering. Facebook is already faltering. They were considered invulnerable until a couple of years ago. Now they're sliding down. Their stock value has plummeted. Their user base is declining. Trustworthiness, as far as how much trust people put in them, is waning to near zero, especially with Facebook. So we've got to understand these alt-tech firms need to maneuver them into regions of space within the tech world that they can exploit when those larger services decline, #1. #2, branch out as much as possible. Begin branching out, offer new services, experiment, test, develop, innovate. If you can do that, then you can become a billionaire. How wonderful for you. That's about all. Peace out.